Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and today I'm gonna discuss Dungeons and Dragons: Wrath of Ashardalon. And this was the first dungeon crawler that I ever acquired since I started the hobby, and it's in fact the within the first 10 or so titles that I acquired when I started a few years ago. However, this left my collection for a while. I thought a couple years ago I let it go because I thought I had outgrown the game after trying tons of other more advanced titles. But recently I reacquired it because I saw lots of people sharing their sessions of this and other titles in the D&D adventure system in solitaire games on your table thread on Board Game Geek. And it gave me some nostalgia, so I wanted to reacquire it, and I'm really happy I did because I have been having a blast with this game and enjoying it way more than I did back in the day. And one of the reasons is that for such a big box game with a significant amount of components, I was surprised how quick this was to pick up. Okay, I've played tons of awesome games, as I've gotten into the hobby and tried more complex titles, but many titles are such a daunting task to learn with the more complex rule books and tons of components. So sometimes it can take days before, based on my free time, before I even get a chance to start playing. But with this, that was not the case. So after unboxing and sleeving, I'm punching out the stuff, the components, and sleeving, not counting the amount of time it took me to do that. Uh, as soon as I picked up the rule book and read it, I was able to set up, read the rule book and set up within an hour, which is not something I could say for tons of games with a box this big. Okay, these days I expect a box this big to just be a bit of a bit of a chore to have to slog through a super complex rulebook, but this was just a breath of fresh air. Okay, now, and so basically in this game you pick a party. You can play from one to five control from 1 to 5 characters. It plays fine solo controlling multiple. I like to control 3. Back then, when I first tried this, I think I made the mistake of only controlling 2 characters. That might be a bit suboptimal. Uh, Now that I'm more comfortable controlling more characters in games, I think 3 is a sweet spot for this. But yeah, you can control from 1 to 5 characters. There are certain scenarios that are completely solvable with just 1 character. So the game includes multiple scenarios, up to 12, I think, 12 plus scenarios. And, they're very replayable because the dungeon tile stack, there's not going to be 2 games that are going to be the same at all with the monsters that you face. There's a menagerie of monsters here that you're going to be facing, and it's not always going to be the same. There's a whole deck of encounters and treasure and that is going to give you different experiences every time. So it's very, very variable, but it's very random at the same time, though. So that is one complaint that some people have, and it's very valid. The game can just punish you really bad sometimes if the die roll doesn't go your way. Okay, but I do like the decision making that there is here. Some people feel that the decisions here might not matter, but I don't agree necessarily, because how you form your party, how you outfit them with their abilities is important in this game for having an optimal party. So I do enjoy that step before, while setting up before the game starts, picking the at will powers, the daily powers, and the utility powers for your characters. I find that a lot of fun. Okay, tinkering with the different loadouts that I can give to my characters, and when as you explore the dungeon, you're gonna have board states where you are gonna have to make some decisions of when to use certain of these abilities, right? Or items. Certain items are one-time use, so you have to know when to use them. Okay, too. So there is some decision making here to be made here for sure. It's definitely not as tactical as other games, not at all even close to something like Gloomhaven, for sure. but I think it's a fine compromise considering how quick this was to learn. I've been in awe how quick I was able to start playing this. Maybe because I had a bit of experience from first playing it a couple years ago, I was able to pick this up so quick. But even then, I remember back then when I first played this. Although some of the concepts, this being my first dungeon crawler, some of the concepts were a bit strange to wrap my head around. But even then, I remember picking this up relatively quick. Okay, like the rule set. But this is a great intro to the dungeon crawler genre for sure. And there is another little nitpick for sure, and it's the fact that the dungeon tiles, as the dungeon becomes bigger, it can sprawl and it can get a bit out of control when it comes to table footprint. So far, I've been able to manage fitting every adventure that I've played here on my modestly sized table. And you might have to cheat, like breaking up the dungeon into different parts and just kind of figuring out where the different parts of the dungeon connect. So there's workarounds, but yeah, how big the dungeon can get if the adventure carries out for a while can be a bit of a problem. Okay, but I just love how with every other more complex game that I've played, like in the dungeon crawler genre, like Shadows of Brainstorm, which is my favorite. I just love how this distills the experience of a dungeon into a simpler rule set. Okay, I do have a nitpick with the rule set though, and because it's simpler, it's a simple rule set, right? You can pick it up pretty quick, but at the same time, because of how simple it is, it leaves out lots of details, okay? And that can be a problem. There is an FAQ on the back of the rulebook, but I also downloaded this from the files section because there's tons of little cases that are not covered. And you know, with the game system being out for this long, pretty much every question has been answered by now, so you're not gonna have a problem. But yeah, I mean, just look at how many FAQ and situations are not covered in the rulebook. Okay, so this comes in handy. But in the spirit of other RPGs, you can just kind of rule on as you go and do what you think is best, not worry too much about it. You know, you can do that approach. I prefer my rules being more clear. So I like having that FAQ to keep things clear and know what to do in certain situations. And I have encountered quite a few cases where I didn't know the rulebook didn't address certain things. So that will I think is necessary that you download that. But yeah, I just absolutely adore how this sets up in less than an hour. There's no campaign commitment, as is the case with many of these big box dungeon crawler games. The turn sequence is simple, and component wise, at the end of the day, it's just a few tokens, three deck types. There's other cards that are used for certain scenarios, but really at the end of the day, it's just 3 decks: monster, encounter, treasure, and your tiles, miniatures, and some tokens. That's it. I just love how simple this is, and the big experience that it offers. Every game is a bit of a roller coaster ride for sure. You're gonna get stuff thrown at you constantly, and when you do draw a card that that doesn't do much to your team, or that it's positive, which are few and far between from the encounter deck, when you draw a card that does not try to kill you, it's just such a relief. It feels good drawing a card that's either a dud or not something that's trying to kill you, or when you draw a dungeon tile that has the white corner instead. So that's just conversely, every time you do that, it feels great. It leaves you a bit of respite. And there is a bit of a campaign element here if you do want to go that route. I've only played this first 6 or so scenarios. This is the setup for the 6th scenario. Actually, I've only played the first 5, and I only lost once. And I know that can vary wildly depending on how the die roll goes for you. But yeah, I appreciate not in this game not destroying me frequently, like for example, like with Gears of War recently in my previous video, where I was getting destroyed nonstop. So I do appreciate just being able to sit down and play and not have to, you can't play on autopilot either. You do have to, try to uh, do things as efficiently as possible with your health and your abilities so that you don't run out before you complete your objective. But yeah, the death looming, like it's not as dying is not as sudden as in something like Gears of War, for example. No, just a little comparison there. But and speaking of that, I did mention in my Gears of War video how this back in the day this system kept getting compared to Gears of War as a solo dungeon crawler. I really found that discussion interesting. How some people swore by the Gears of War and like, why would you buy this instead of Gears of War? Blah blah. And I mean, there's reasons. This is less punishing. There's way more replayability here. Gears of War had less scenarios versus this, and tons of people just prefer the flavor here. It's definitely way less tactical. I'll give Gears of War that. This is not as tactical as something like Gloomhaven, like I said. But just little aside there, because when I was reading about this at Gears of War, because I played this back to back, I found that debate from back in the day pretty fascinating. Lots of people pitched in their ideas comparing these two systems. Speaking of this system, there's also many other titles in the series, and I definitely, with how much I've been enjoying this, I'm definitely gonna be acquiring. At the very least, Castle Ravenloft and Legend of Drizzt. And if you have anything to share about other entries in the series, I'll be interested to see in the comment section what you think. I've read some, and a lot of people seem to settle on the idea that the first three entries, were this, Ravenloft, and Drizzt, are the best in the series, and the others are very hit and miss. But the three best are the first three that came out, from what I've read. But yeah, definitely with how much I've been enjoying this, I can just set up and play and relearn the rules really quick. I'm going to be coming back to this and playing it between other bigger games. And I also love the value proposition of this game, by the way. Just for $50 or $60, depending on where you acquire this, on that price range, you get so many components, and you get, just on the miniatures alone, just look at that. You get so many miniatures. And for just the miniatures by themselves would justify the price of this. Compared to other titles that charge as much and they bring like a board and some cards and some tokens, this is just insane. And there's a reason why this keeps getting printed, and this keeps getting printed to this day, and it keeps selling. I just love this, and it also works as a great intro product to bring someone into the hobby. So I think at some point, if I update, if I redo my best solo board games for beginners list, I'm probably gonna include this in there. Yeah, I'm super happy to have this back in my collection. Just been having a blast with this. Yeah, so those were my thoughts on the Dungeons and Dragons adventure system, Wrath of Ashardalon. And I want to thank you so much for watching. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.